Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, which is a follow-on video from the video I made for the Velocity One with advanced autopilot functionality for things like moving your heading bug. So watch this blue heading bug down here. Using your controller. So without coming down twiddling with knobs, you're actually using your controller. And things like moving the assigned autopilot altitude. Watch this reading here. Again, without coming down using your mouse to mess around with knobs and controllers, you're actually just using your flight controller. This time it's not on the Velocity One, it's using the Hotas One. This works for both PC and Xbox to make the functionality of the Hotas One that little bit better. So let's not hesitate. Let's get on with the video. So I'm loaded in on my usual destination at London City Airport. As you can see, runway 27 again. Got live multiplayer on once again. Now I'm recording this on PC. I've tried it on the Xbox as well. It works fine. I just wanted to mix things up a bit, so I'm using the Hotas One on the PC. Like I said, the same principles apply to the Xbox. I'm going to press my escape button in this case. And in options, go to control options. Now something else I mentioned, this setup I have, I'm going to link a video in the top right. It's pretty much the same settings you're going to find in that video that I've got set up here. So I've got my trim to B2 and B1. My camera setup and goodness knows what, and my sensitivity setup. And all the settings you found in that video, that's currently the way I've got this set up. But I don't have any advanced autopilot functionality. I don't think I've got even autopilot on this setup yet, in this profile. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this profile. This is my Hotas One in use profile that I use daily when I'm on the PC, and my Hotas One. But I'm just going to copy it. And in use, let's just duplicate that, and I'm going to delete that, and this one I'm just going to call AP again, like I did in my last video for the Velocity One. This is going to be my autopilot settings, and okay, so there you go. This profile from now on is going to be called AP. So the first thing I'm going to set up, let's do the basics first. I want an autopilot master switch. So I'm going to move the filter to all. That'll bring up all the possible controls again. Many of them most people don't even use, but that's by the by. We'll go to the autopilot tab first. Left click that, or choose it with your gamepad if you're on Xbox and press A. We want to go to Toggle Autopilot Master. So just scroll down a little bit until you see Toggle Autopilot Master. Now I'm going to set this on my Hotas One to button 15. Let me just get a closer look at that. I believe that's B5. I'll show you a picture of that. That's going to be my Toggle Autopilot Master on. So I'm going to click in this box. Click in Start Scanning. I don't have anything set to B5 or button 15 currently. Press that button. And that's now my Toggle Autopilot Master on and off. Validate. And apply and save. Couple of other things I want to set up here. I want to set up my Toggle Pilot nav. Now, if you remember, if you've not seen the last video I made for the Velocity One, let's go down to my instruments. Instead of coming down here when I've turned autopilot on and coming down and pressing my nav button to follow my course that I've got set up, so if you have a course set up, you probably all know this by now, press your nav button, the autopilot will follow that course. Instead of doing that, I want to set up a button to do that. So back to options, control options, Ensure filter is on all, because we haven't set this one up yet. So change that to all, autopilot, and the nav button, or control for this, or settings, so it follows your course. You want to get the first word up, autopilot, so wait till you see autopilot come up as the first word. There we are. Keep scrolling down while we're in autopilot, and it's autopilot nav 1 hold is essentially the same as pressing that nav button. Now for this I'm going to use my, let's just check my X button on my controller. I'll show you a picture of where that is on the Hotas One, because I've not got that assigned to anything at the moment. If you have, choose a different button. But I'm going to choose autopilot nav 1 hold, click in the box, click and start scanning, and press my X button. Like I said, I've got nothing assigned to that, so that's perfect. Validate and apply and save. Let's just check that that works before moving on. If I press my X button, sorry, press my button B5, 15 to turn the autopilot master, you're turning the autopilot computer on basically. So button B5, there you go, autopilot's on as you can see here, AP. Press my X button now. Yeah, it's gone to GPS, so if I was up in the air, it will be following the course. I could turn that off because I'm on the ground, and turn my autopilot master off. There you go, autopilot's disengaged. That all works fine. Let's go on with a couple of more basics. So back to options, control options. The only other thing I'm going to set up, I don't want to make this too complex because there's a finite amount of controls on the Hotas One. You can go wild. I'm just sowing the seeds here, giving you the idea and showing you my settings. If you want to take them further, that's the whole idea of the videos. I'm showing you the seeds. You can actually go on and grow more and set up more buttons, essentially. But I'm going to go back to filter all. I've not got my, let me just check again, it's my A button. I'll show you where that is. I don't have that set up on anything, so I'm going to set that up as my heading hold. So again, let me just go back. I've got filter on all, go to the autopilot menu, and you want basically toggle heading hold on and off. And that's going to be, once again, let me check again, it's my A button. So toggle autopilot heading hold, click in the box, click and start scanning, and press my A button, validate, and apply and save. So if I go back to the simulator just to test that, I'll turn the autopilot master on because I turned it off before. Autopilot comes up. If I press my, I keep losing track of it, my A button, I do apologise. Press my A button, heading hold comes on now. Press my X button, GPS comes on. Nav hold basically, it'll follow your course. Turn the autopilot, well, turn them both off in fact, just turn GPS off. And then turn my autopilot master off. So that's all working well. Let's go on with more settings. Okay, so let's continue setting up some more advanced options now. Now, if I'm in heading mode, let me just press my A button on my Hotas One. Now you can see it's gone in heading mode. If I'm up in the air, typically, or if you're up in the air, typically you'll come down and mess around with this knob here, moving it left or right with your mouse, so scrolling up or down to move it left or right. And you can see the heading bug there. So if you're in heading mode, the aircraft will follow wherever that blue bug is. So if I put it northeast, for example, it will follow that. If I put it back to north, it will go back north. Instead of having to do that, coming down and messing around with this knob, I want to set up controls on the Hotas One to do that for me, to make life easier. And likewise, instead of setting an assigned autopilot altitude with this knob, I want to set up controls for this as well to make life easier. Now, like I said, I'm showing you these as an example. The idea is that you take these and then you can add more controls if you want to. But I'm going to show you how to set up these two controls without coming down and twiddling with these two knobs. So let's press escape. We'll go to control options. Once again, make sure that your filter is on all, because we'll be choosing more options now. Let's first go with the heading bug. Now, with the Velocity One video I showed you, you would think the heading bug would be under the Autopilot menu somewhere. It's not. It's not in there whatsoever, for whatever reason. So click out of that menu. Don't go in the Autopilot menu. Go into Instruments and Settings on Filter All. Instruments and Settings, and it's under Flight Instruments in the sub-menu. So Flight Instruments, scroll down here until you start to see Increase as the first word. Increase, there we go. And there it is. Increase heading bug. A little bit further down is Decrease heading bug. This is how you would set your heading bug. We've set Toggle Autopilot Heading Hold on. Or Toggle Autopilot Heading Hold already. So that's all set. So all we need to do now is set up the Increase and Decrease heading bug. Now, if you watched the video I showed you before, if you've already watched it, I linked it before, all my Hotas One settings. I showed you now that I use the twist on the joystick, so I twist my joystick left and right. That's my rudder action. The rocker switch on the front of the throttle, I'll show you a picture of that. I'm sure you all know where that is, but just in case, I've deleted any assignments that were on there, so the rocker switch is free for me to use. So I'm going to use that in conjunction with my hat switch. I'm going to show you how I do this. So increase heading bug, let's click in the box. For this, for increase heading bug, I'm going to hold my rocker switch left. Remember, the rocker switch is in front of the throttle, so it's going to be the other way around from the picture I'm going to show you. But the way you've got your Hotas One set up, the rocker switch should be in front of the throttle, so hold it down left. And I'm going to use my hat switch right. So I'm going to, when I click start scanning, I'm going to have to press both those buttons together and get the timing right. Little bit tricky, but after a couple of tries it should work. Maybe on the first try, let's try it. Click start scanning, rocker switch left and hat switch right together. It's worked. So PLV left, hat switch to the right rather, and that's my left rocker switch. Basically. So that's all works. So I can validate. I can test this in a moment and show you. We'll validate that and apply and save it. So we'll go down now, scroll down this menu to see decrease heading bug. Again, I'm going to use the rocker switch, the same rocker switch to the left, but this time my hat switch to the left as well. So click in decrease heading bug. I'll showing you a picture of that on screen, so hopefully you get the combination. Remember, the rocker switch is going to be the other way around when you've got your Hotas One sat in front of you. But I'm going to click in start scanning. I'm going to click my rocker left and hats left at the same time. There you go. That should have set up. We could test this, validate, and apply and save. Go back, resume. So if I hold down my left rocker and move my hat switch left and right, you can see what's happening. My heading bug is moving. Keep an eye here, just in case you're not looking in the right direction. There you go. If I move it left, it moves left. If I move it right, it goes right. Or it decreases and increases. Decreases and increases. So there you go, that's all set up perfectly. Let's just click out of heading mode. We don't need to be in heading mode there. You don't need to be in heading mode for that heading bug to work. In fact, it will still work, as you can see, by holding down your left rocker switch and moving your hat switch left and right. So that's all perfect. Let's now set up our assigned autopilot altitude. So again, go to control options. And again, we want to make sure that filter is on all, so we get all the options available to us. Go to autopilot. And again, we want the first word to be increase. So we want to see increase as the first word. And basically, it's increase autopilot reference altitude. You don't need to set up any other buttons apart from these two I'm going to show you on this. Again, I'm going to use my rocker switch. This time I'm going to use the right rocker switch. This time I'm going to hold it to the right, the rocker. So let's just click in that box first. I'm going to use, in this case, my rocker switch to the right, and I'm going to use my hat switch up. So I'm going to click those two buttons at the same time and hope it works. Start scanning. Rocker switch to the right, hat switch up. That looks okay. Validate and apply and save. We want to get down to decrease reference altitude there. Autopilot reference altitude. Click in the box. Again, I'm going to use my rocker switch to the right, and this time my hat switch down. Press them both at the same time. So start scanning. Rocker switch to the right, hat switch down. It's not too difficult to do that, actually. Not difficult to do. That looks okay. Validate and apply and save. Let's just go back to the sim. Resume. Hold down my rocker switch. I can just keep it held down to the right. Move my hat switch up and down. As you can see, the autopilot selected altitude, what I want the autopilot to get to, is now working. It's easy to get to an assigned autopilot altitude here as well. If I want to go down up to 3,000 feet, so that's what I want to climb to, it took me a matter of seconds. If I want to get it down to a more reasonable height, altitude, 1,400, there you go. Did that in a matter of moments. We'll keep it there. That's the altitude we can climb to. So that's all the autopilot buttons I'm going to set up in this video. It's just to give you the idea, if you want to set up more buttons like vertical speed, just use the same principles. Go and look at the Velocity One setup video I did. And if you want to assign even more autopilot buttons, you can do. There's just a finite amount of buttons on the Hotas One, but you can go wild, and I know people in my Discord have set up even more buttons than that. So the world's your oyster. With those set up, let's now go for a test flight. So, set up at London City Airport. What in the world has just spawned in front of me? Well, it's going to call that live. In live multiplayer, that's okay. Okay, some kind of jet. Runway 27, snazzy Hudson livery that Ace is down one created for me. Link to one of his videos in the top right again, why not? There's a few people lined up here, but I'll tell you what, while they're looking to take off, looks like they're queued to take off, hopefully. Maybe there's another, this could be a multiplayer flight setup. Never mind, I'll come down to my instrument view. First thing I'm going to do is press the B button on my keyboard. I've noticed recently Flight Simulator has been doing this a lot, showing the wrong altitude for the runway. Should just be above sea level, this runway. Press the B button. There we go. That's the correct reading for this runway at London City. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you the combination of this on screen. Move the mouse out of the way. Well, I'm going to increase my assigned autopilot altitude. So I'll move the mouse out of the way, show you the combination on screen. Right rocker switch and hat switch up to increase that assigned autopilot altitude. What I want the autopilot to climb to 1,300 feet. That's fine, that's set up, so that works well. Good, they've gone. There's another aircraft in front of me. I'm going to drive through you, I'm afraid. Throttle up, release the parking brake. Bad manners this, but we are making a video, so I hope they understand. Oops. That's going to cost me a fortune, but never mind. Get up to takeoff speed. That will do. And trim up so I can relieve pressure on holding my joystick back. Lots of people on multiplayer, live multiplayer, as you can see. Press my autopilot button, B5, and my X button, which we set up before on the controller, to follow our route. I've just set up a simple route, just as an example. It's following the route, and it's climbing to our 1,300 feet. Now, here's the test. While I'm doing that, let's go down to our left G1000 view. Throttle back a little bit, because as you can see, I'm over revving the engine. That's better. I'm going to hold down my left rocker. No, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click on my toggle heading hold. What will happen, the aircraft will bank to the right to follow the heading book, which is currently on north by default. Let me click my A button, which I set up before, toggle heading hold on. There you go, it's in heading mode. It's coming down round to the north because that's what it's set by default. I'm going to hold down my left rocker and move my hat switch left, which we set up. It's moving that heading bug, so my heading mode now is coming back near enough to the heading we were at. I'll just move it to the left a little bit more. And as you can see, I'm controlling my heading now, the autopilot heading, with my rocker switch left and hat switch left and right. So that's all working well. And if I click back on nav, my nav button, I'd actually have to move back around to the left a bit, because as you can see here, I've come away from the magenta line, and nav won't engage if you're so far away, if you're a certain distance away from that magenta line. So I'm just going to come back around to it. Gives me a good excuse to use my autopilot, to use my heading bug I've set up, or buttons to move my heading bug rather. There we go, I'll come around, back round to the left a little bit more so we get towards that magenta line a bit further. Once we're at that magenta line, GPS will flash and it'll be back in full GPS mode, full nav mode. So I'll let that happen, just to show you all's working well. So we're going to intercept that line in no time at all. There you go, GPS is flashing, we're back in nav hold mode, so it's going to follow our course. So that's all working well. Listen, do give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it and it's been useful to you. The world's your oyster, you can set up more buttons, as many buttons as you're allowed to with the Hotas One, or as many buttons as you want autopilot assigned functions. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more. If you're not subscribed yet, remember I'm releasing flight simulator videos like this all the time, so subscribe for more and I'll see you soon.